Hello everyone, welcome to D Squared Stories, an audio fiction podcast bringing you short serialized weekly stories. I've been gone for a while now, but I'm really glad to be back with another story. I was hopping between 3 projects, all of which I'm excited for, and some that just needed a little bit more attention than others. But I'm back with a pretty decent backlog of written material, so I'm hoping to get back to mostly weekly posting. If you're a returning listener, I appreciate you withstanding the hiatus, and if you're a new listener, you're in for a fun one. The heroic adventures of Everyman follows, if you can believe it or not, Everyman. He's a hero who could be anybody, and that's his motto. Because in the world of Everyman, a significant portion of the population has superpowers. But he does not. That won't stop him from fighting villains and saving the day all the same, though. Quick plug here. If you like what you're listening to and want to make a show of it, please rate the podcast, give it a like on YouTube, or drop a comment. I always appreciate knowing if people are enjoying what I'm putting out there. If you think someone else might enjoy this, please share it with them. But as always, without any further ado, let's get into the heroic adventures of Everyman. Chapter 1. Enter Everyman. In the bustling streets of Cityville, everyone had somewhere to be. People hurried from one place to another, some more polite about it than others. It was the capital of Nationland, after all, where the world's most important business was conducted. The buildings in the residential neighborhoods were tall. They had to be, to keep all the people who could barely afford to live in their shoebox apartments. Most people lived within walking distance of the financial district, because the public transit was so unreliable that walking was often more reliable and cost-efficient. A tour bus was going through the residential area and turning onto one of the major through streets of the city. A plucky woman with blonde curly hair spoke to the passengers. "And on your right, you'll see one of the main offices of Frankenstein and Frankenstein. It was in this building that an experiment involving hyperradioactivity went out of control and permanently changed the chemical composition of water all around the world." The people on the bus oohed and ahed at this notable monument. Some of the older ones were part of the $2 billion settlement the company paid after the incident. A young boy with a striped shirt raised his hand. Ooh, is that how all the world's superheroes came into being?" he asked. "That's right," she said. "Following that incident, it's estimated around 20% of the world's population received a mutation that gave them superhuman abilities." She neglected to mention the 15% of the population that died premature deaths linked to the exposure. Everyone always left that part out for some reason. The boy excitedly held a comic book of some kind based on one of the heroes in his hand. The bus abruptly hit the brakes, and the tour guide pointed up into the sky. "Look, there's one there right now. I wonder who this is. It looks too gray to be Nation, man." The hurtling human-shaped ball of concrete smashed into the road in front of them, causing the bus to tip over. People screamed and ran away from the impact zone. The man with skin of concrete let out an evil chuckle with a deep voice as he flipped a red sedan over. He knocked it into a brick wall with a mural of a businessman on it.
"Take that, you stupid corporate oaf! I just broke you in half!"
He stomped about like a child splashing in a puddle, the weight of his massive limbs putting more cracks and dents into the street and sidewalk with every impact. The people started to evacuate from the bus and tried to flee, but they were intercepted by a woman who floated in the air, seemingly levitating using this dark, heavy purple smoke that she emitted from her hands and feet. "Going somewhere, simpletons?" she asked. She channeled the fumes from her hands and cast them over the faces of those as they tried to flee. They started to suffocate under it, and the massive cloud of smoke spread throughout the area, leaving a grimy residue on all of the buildings. She cackled maniacally. She looked to be a woman in her 60s, with long gray hair. Her outfit was purple, and her face slightly wrinkled from age. As she tormented the tourists, a man in a leather jacket and motorcycle helmet disjointedly seemed to approach them. His body flew sideways, then down, then up a little, before gently readjusting to go down. He was not flying. It was more like every few moments he was changing the direction that gravity pulled him in. He seemed cautious as he landed, as if he was nervous about the roller coaster ride that was his ability. "Violet Violence, stay focused. We need to break into that building and steal a special sample that F&F have been cooking up. Grey Grudge, knock down the wall to their office." Violet seemed to ignore him as she continued draining the life out of her poor victims. Gray slowly and reluctantly walked over to a building next to the F&F building and started to pound his fists into it, shattering the wall. The man, his name Black Biker, printed on the back of his jacket, shook his helmet-covered head as his teammates failed to cooperate with him at all. Suddenly, a man with large blue wings and blue vest and goggles flew towards Violet. He flapped his wings aggressively. The gust he put up managed to free the people from the overwhelmingly toxic fumes, and they started to run away. Gray, sensing the commotion, turned his attention towards the fleeing passengers and lifted a car. He listened carefully to figure out exactly where they were, but before he could throw it, a burst of flames shot out towards him and caused the car to explode in his arms. Black turned to see a woman in a green pantsuit step out, seeming to be the source of the flames. Before he could say anything, though, he thrust himself upside down with his gravity-deflecting powers to dodge out of the way of an oncoming red race car. The driver rolled down his window and winked at him. He was a young Asian man with short brown hair and a bright red scarf. Notably, he was sitting in the passenger side, with no one in the driver's side. "Hey there," he said. "Can't help but notice you and your buddies are making a mess here." Black stayed floating in the air, seeming to rapidly alternate gravity's effect on him, up and down, while taking in the sight of these heroes. "And who are you?" Black said. "Can't say that I know of you. Are you some sort of third-rate hero team?" The driver smirked. The back wheels of his car suddenly revved and the car stood up, nearly vertical as it boosted forward. Black barely managed to adjust gravity enough to the right to avoid the crash. The car spun around and landed back on all four wheels. He leaned his head out the window. "They call me Red Racer. My wingman over there we call Bluebird. The smoking, fiery hot lady over there is called Emerald Eye. Together, we go by the name RBG." Black stared back at Red, his expression hidden by the helmet. "You call yourselves RBG despite the fact that your team initials are RBE. Just one of several instances of how stupid you seem to be." Black shifted gravity and fell towards Red, who rolled up the window to protect himself. However, Black simply tapped the car, and it started lifting off the ground and falling in the same direction as Black. Red held onto the seat, as the car seemed to rev its wheels, but there was no friction on the ground for it to catch. The car smashed into pedestrians, causing some to collapse instantly as the car reached terminal velocity. "It's no use. Your little fancy car tricks are no use if I control where gravity is. Let's go for a real ride." He tapped the car again. The car crashed into a nearby major bank before getting stuck against the last wall. Black was quick to adjust his own gravity to dive towards it and tap it again before sending it on another course of mass destruction. Meanwhile, back with Emerald and Blue, they were staring down Violet and Gray. Gray charged towards Emerald, swinging his fists at the young woman in the green pantsuit. With her left index finger, she pulled down the lower lid of her eye. A jet of flame so hot that the center was light blue emitted from her eye, before spreading and blasting into the stone-fleshed man. He just kept walking through it, though, as if the impact did nothing to him. Emerald groaned in pain, the heat from her eye making her stop for a moment. "Dang it, it's no use," she said.
"Oh, does someone want a hot stone massage?"
He started wildly slamming his fists into the ground. She managed to dodge backward and out of the direct hit, but the impacts made quakes in the ground, which made her unable to keep her balance. She was also hamstrung by having to hold her burning eye in her hand. At the same time, Blue weaved in and out of thick balls of purple smoke that Violet created. He swatted some away with his wings. Eventually, he got close enough to grab her by the shoulder and flapped upwards with great energy, lifting her several meters into the air before attempting to toss her to the ground with great force.
"Take this, you cancer-causing demon!"
When he released, though, small plumes of concentrated purple particles slowed her fall, and a sudden surge of haze shot up at Blue, hitting him in the wings. The smoke spread and solidified into tar, causing his one wing to jam up, as he had to make a rough landing on the ground. Violet simply floated to the ground before him, wicked grin plastered on her face. "Chuff talk from a literal bird brain." Black continued manipulating gravity and dragging Red across the financial district, causing massive amounts of damage to the businesses that called their home. He eventually brought the fight back to where his allies were, at which point he tipped the car and gave a peace sign to him. "See you later, Red Spacer." Red's car started to fly up into the air, headed into the atmosphere with the full force of gravity acting in reverse on him. He managed to swing the car door open just as he was above the skyscrapers of the building. He jumped out of the car. "Blue, I could really use your help right now." Blue, who was patting his wings to get rid of the gunk that kept him from flying, started to panic, unable to remove it.
"Red, I can't help you right now,"
he said. "Oh my gosh, someone do something!" Emerald cried out. Right as it seemed that Red Racer was about to complete the course of his life, he was swiftly grabbed by the shoulder and gently brought to the ground. The cocky smirk across Violet's face faded to solemnity once she saw who saved Red. The large, 6'4" man, swelling with muscles at every part of his body, levitated above the ground. He was donned with a white spandex suit and a black cape. The symbol in the middle of his suit was a black flag with a crescent moon in the middle of it, the same flag as the country of Nationland. He stood, full head of black hair, as dark as his cape, eyeing the villains before him.
"Fear not, young heroes," he said. "The symbol of unbridled patriotism, the ally of hard-working businesses, and the scourge of thieves, terrorists, and scoundrels. Nationland is here."
Violet and Black stepped backwards with trepidation. The fabled larger-than-life hero, 20-year veteran and chairman of the Hero Corporation, stood in their midst and against them. Gray, who seemed to only now just pick up on what was happening, started bounding towards his direction.
I'm gonna clobber you, Nation Man.
Gray, no! Black shouted. There was no getting through to him, though. The mineral beast charged towards him with reckless abandon. Nation Man put Red down next to Blue and Emerald. He straightened himself out, took a deep breath, and then suddenly, without warning, almost as fast as sound, bolted through midair towards Gray Grudge. He stuck out 4 fingers from his right hand, and as if they were made out of titanium, the impact thrust through Gray's otherwise impenetrable skin. He used the divot he created to lift the geological villain up into the sky with him, then flung him straight into the ground several blocks away in the residential district.
Let me teach you young heroes a lesson in crime fighting, he said.
In the moment it took Violet to blink, he was standing right in front of her, with a fist raised. Violet let forth a gale of toxic purple fumes in his direction. Nation Man chuckled as he took a quick breath and then exhaled with great force, the countering winds dissipating the smoke and sending Violet flying in the same direction as her gray counterpart.
Always minimize collateral damage while fighting, especially when in somewhere scenic like downtown Cityville, he said. The villains thrive on hopelessness, and any damage they can do to our landmarks and businesses can hurt the morale of the people that really need it.
As he stared and watched Violet tumble over herself several blocks away, Black ran up to him and tapped him on the arm and jumped backwards with a short chuckle. To his dismay, Nation Man seemed completely unfazed by this and still stood in his exact position.
Are you the leader of this band of savages? He asked. What a weak power you have, changing the flow of gravity on something you touch. I stopped being bound by gravity by the time I was 13.
He stuck out his finger towards Black and flicked him in his helmet. The glass shattered and he went flying backwards from the impact. He adjusted gravity in the direction he was knocked in an attempt to get away from Nation Man, but by the time he got to Violet and Gray, the superhero stomped on him in the chest, pushing him into the ground with great force. The reinforced leather armor, built to withstand the impacts of great falls from his power, buckled under Nation Man's foot. Nation Man leered down at the 3 of them. His mouth turned into an angry grimace. Bluebird, Emerald Eyes, and Red Racer all arrived shortly after on the scene, Red Racer having hopped on and taken control of a motorbike that was left in the destruction. Nation Man flexed his bulging muscles and seemed ready to crush the villains into dust before a small radio in his back pocket made a few chimes before someone spoke. "Mr. Nation Man," a woman's gentle voice said, "the dastardly Sparkson is going to the city's main electric substation again and is sapping up the power from the electric grid." Nation Man turned back in horror.
Sparkson? Not again. The last time he did that, he caused a citywide blackout, which did numbers on the city's economic activity. I can't let that happen again.
He turned to the team of RBG.
I softened them up for you. I hope this demonstration gave you what you need to be inspired.
He flew off at such great speeds that it caused everyone in the vicinity to stumble for a moment. Black Biker got back onto his feet, breathing heavily but still able to fight. Violet and Gray seemed a little better off and menacingly stepped towards the novice heroes. Black let out a rough cough before speaking.
"Well, our lucky day, I guess," he said. "I think any hope of us getting those samples are shot, and that makes me mad. All that's left to do is take this anger out on some entry-level heroes."
Red grimaced. Both Blue and Emerald looked tired, weak, and nervous. They took fighting stances and got ready for the incoming villains, before someone else interrupted them.
"Sorry to cut in," a voice said, "but I can't help but feel like this is just senseless violence at this point."
A man of medium build, average height, appeared from an alleyway. He wore a thin black mask that just barely went over his eyes. He had wavy brown hair. He wore a collared shirt with 3 buttons on it, seemingly made out of a spandex material, over top of something underneath. He wore black khaki pants, which also seemed to be made out of the subtle, flexible material. On his right breast pocket, there was a crest of a dark blue shield, with a bright white E in garish, old-looking font. He smiled with genuine positivity, appearing overjoyed to be alive.
"And who the hell are you supposed to be?"
Violet asked.
"Who, me? I'm Everyman. I'm a hero who could be anyone. I want to be an inspiration to everyone and prove that anyone can be a hero if they put their mind to it."
The 6 combatants stood a bit awestruck and confused at this rather humble introduction. So far, no one had seen any indication of what kind of power Everyman might have. However, since the outbreak of superheroes, normal people trying to take on the vigilante lifestyle was nothing uncommon. People seeing others do it made them think they could do it themselves. These people met with a grisly fate. Fast. The heroes of RBG worried they were about to witness something similar, and were unsure if they could stop it.
Gray chuckled. That's just something no one who has no powers would say. I'm going to smash you into pieces. Very well then, Everyman said. Let's take to the street and see what you can do. Everyman talked as he walked over towards the street and away from the crowded buildings that people were taking shelter in. He spaced his words out with his steps, being very deliberate. Once he had stopped talking, Gray lunged towards him, jumping high into the air and aiming his fist right where Everyman was. Everyman dropped to the ground and carefully rolled away. Gray's fist left a small crater in the ground, and he swung wildly in the area. Everyman rose back to his feet silently, and worked his way, walking silently behind Gray, who seemed to swing aimlessly at the man who was just walking towards his backside. The others stared on in confusion. Black and Violet so stunned by this that the words caught in their throat, and they were unable to even call out to their ally to tell him that Everyman was sneaking up right behind him. You see, this was the secret power that Everyman had. While it was true, he was part of the 80% of the population unaffected by the mutation. He was special in his own right. He had a power that most people failed to have, even superheroes. He had the power of common sense. He focused intently as he stared down his opponent. It's as I suspected, Everyman thought. That rock covering all over his flesh, it's obscuring his vision. He's completely unable to see anything that's not directly in front of him. I bet his hearing and touch is not so precise either. Gray, he's right behind you! Black finally shouted. Everyman slid through the large rock monster's legs. As Gray turned, completely unaware of his opponent's movements, he swung his fist into the ground where no one was. Everyman pulled a retractable crowbar from his belt and pulled at Gray's head, tugging him backwards. Now I got you! Time for me to yank your head off! Gray, startled at this blatant bluff, swung his fist upwards to try and strike into what he thought to be Everyman's hand. Everyman quickly retracted the end of the crowbar, pulling it out of the way, and Gray smashed his fist into his face at full force, causing him to cause cracks in both his knuckles and his head as he slowly stumbled backwards and collapsed to the ground from the concussive force. Everyman turned with dramatic flourish and put the crowbar back onto his belt. One down. Who wants to go next? Black stepped backwards. Violet stared in shock at how quickly Gray was dispatched. Internally, Everyman thought, Yeesh, that was pretty lucky that I got that on the first try. I knew there was going to be no way I could penetrate that stone flesh of his on my own. I'm just glad he put enough force into that swing to knock himself out. Violet stepped forward. She stretched out her hands and pushed forth a miasma of her purple fumes. Blue called out to him, Everyman, be careful. That stuff can really mess you up. Everyman reached down into his shirt and pulled up a gas mask that was part of his specialized costume. By the time the smoke reached his face, he had it fully on. Violet stared in agitation. Everyman breathed in freely, the particles unable to reach through the filters designed to filter out all kinds of hazards. Everyman thought to himself, It's good I have this, but I know that smoke does more damage than just to your lungs. Presumably, she has some kind of immunity to it. However, most people don't have immunity to this. Everyman reached into his back pocket and pulled out one of several throwing knives and tossed it right at her. She narrowly moved her head from what would have been a direct hit between her eyes. In her shock, the haze around Everyman dissipated. He thought to himself, Oh, shoot! I let my hand slip there! I meant to aim for her chest and deal a non-lethal injury. That could have been really bad. I need to get back to the range to work on my form. On the surface, though, he spoke in a taunting tone. You know, my father raised me to say that men who hit women are no men at all, he said. Unfortunately for you, though, he never said anything about throwing knives at them. He loosed another knife from his back pocket and threw it at her. She conjured a plume of dense smoke that stalled the blade until it dropped to the ground. Then she pushed her arms out, and a spike of the purple gases started lunging towards Everyman. He pulled a lighter from his front pocket and flicked it on in front of him. Here goes nothing, he thought. As the fumes reached him, they burst into flames in an inferno that went all the way back to Violet. It singed her hair and clothes as she rolled on the ground, desperate to put it out. Everyman returned the lighter to his pocket and stepped forward towards Black. Emerald Eye, once she's done putting herself out, keep your eyes on her, and send her up in flames if she does anything funny. Emerald nodded and made her way towards Violet. Black stood in the way, but Everyman kept stepping forward. You caused a lot of chaos today, Everyman said. But that ends now. Black groaned. He turned to face Everyman and stepped forward. I think I get your shtick now. You're a measly prop comedian pretending to be a hero. I'm about to send you into the atmosphere. He lunged towards Everyman, hand outstretched. Everyman swung his left arm and deflected it. Then he struck Black in the stomach with a fist, causing him to stumble backwards. Black went back again, lunging for him, but Everyman stepped to the side and delivered a side kick, knocking him into the ground. Everyman chuckled to himself. These basic martial arts classes are really paying off. Just a couple of blocks and kicks and this guy can barely touch me. I have to figure out how to stop him, though.
After one last deflected grab, Everyman saw what he was looking for. Black's leather-clad body had one exception. The gloves he wore had little tips cut out for his fingers.
Of course, he has to make physical contact with whatever he manipulates. I just have to find a way to bind his hands, he thought.
Black stepped back and started tapping cars and chunks of rubble, sending their gravity into Everyman's direction. Everyman jumped and tapped his shoes together, causing roller blades to emerge from them. He skated off away from Black. Black tapped his fingers and adjusted his own gravity to give chase, touching obstacles along the way to cause them to hurtle towards Everyman. After deftly dodging each one of them and staying out of Black's range, Everyman saw a cement truck in the distance, pouring cement.
That'll do it.
He came to a sudden halt. Black, seeing what was happening, tapped his fingers and reversed gravity. It was too late, though. The momentum he had was only slowed by the gravity, and gave Everyman easy access to grab Black by his wrists and thrust his hands into the cement, pulling them out and holding them until they had a chance to dry. Black flailed, but he was unable to break free in time before the cement solidified around his fingertips. The police arrived and took the three villains into custody, following the instructions from Everyman on how to best keep them bound and restrained. Everyman returned to RBG and dusted himself off, still smiling with his zeal for life.
Well, great work, team. I'll need to be off for now, though.
Wait, we need you to come with us, Red said.
Why is that?
He asked. Red sighed and looked puzzled. What do you mean, why is that? You're with the Hero Corporation, aren't you? You helped settle this case and we need you to come back with us and close out the Hero Service Order paperwork and report.
Paperwork? I didn't realize heroes had to fill out paperwork. I'm a free agent, actually. I'm not with the Hero Corporation. Honestly, with your performance, I had kind of assumed you weren't either.
The three heroes looked varying degrees of confused, insulted, and agitated by this. Emerald stepped forward. Can you please still come with us? She asked. It would make our lives a whole lot easier.
I suppose so. Lead the way back to this Hero Corporation.
Red commandeered an abandoned vehicle and drove the four of them back up to the financial district. Under the office of one of the biggest law firms in the city, there was a garage. Upon entering the garage, the car rested on top of a rectangular plate. Red badged his keycard, and the plate started lowering underneath the ground like an elevator. They went down several floors before ending up in the secret Hero Corporation headquarters and parking in the Hero lot. They had to park all the way towards the back in the last spot because Nationland had left his sports car taking up 2 spots. It had been this way for weeks because Nationland never drives anywhere, considering he can fly. Red approached the receptionist desk where a pale young woman greeted him.
Hey, we're looking to close out the F&F service order,
Red said. She clicked her tongue. Yeah, about that. Nationland just flew in a few moments ago and took those files for himself for review. You'll have to go see him.
Well, that's not good, Blue said.
The group of 4 went towards Nationman's office. He was in there, watching on his large screen TV, the footage from the security cameras of Black Biker pummeling a Red Racer throughout the streets and causing massive property damage in the process. He crushed the water bottle he held in his hand as he seemed to glare at this. Red gulped upon seeing this as he walked through the door.
Just who I was looking to see, Nationman said. Do you see what I see on this TV here?
Yes, sir, Red Racer said.
I'm not sure you do, he said. I see a set of D-tier villains mopping the floor with a bunch of D-tier heroes. Do you know how we assign rankings to heroes and their teams and why we do it?
Red trembled a bit, answering. It's so that when dispatch is sending us out, they send the appropriate level hero to deal with the appropriate level villain.
Exactly. It's meant to optimize our team and make sure that our A and B tier heroes can take on real threats and the small stuff can be handled by the newbies. But if those newbies can't handle someone like Black Biker, then I don't know if there's a point to having you on the team. I think it's time for RBG to be disbanded.
Sir, please, Red said. He just continued playing the tape of Red Racer getting beaten up throughout the financial district, making his point better than words ever could. After a few moments of this blatant humiliation, Everyman chimed in. How did you come into possession of all this security footage without even issuing a warrant? He asked. Nationman looked up. In his rage, he had not even registered the presence of the outsider in his midst. But rather than be upset about this, he simply smiled, his gaze softening. He clicked a few buttons on the remote to cut over to footage of Everyman defeating Grey Grudge.
You, Nationman said. You, on the other hand, well, I'm not even quite sure what kind of powers you have, but you dealt with 3 D-tier villains on your own, without a scratch. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think anyone would have an issue with you jumping ranks and starting off as a C-tier hero. What do you say? I already have a day job, actually, Everyman said. One that I really like too, that pays well. This hero thing is more of a hobby that I'm exploring. Nation Man's eyes seemed to twitch involuntarily. A hobby? Sorry, I don't think you understand. The Hero Corporation has a contract with Cityville and Nation Man at large. The state and ourselves have a duopoly on violence, if you will. We cannot tolerate those outside of the control of Hero Corporation and our shareholders dishing out violence in the streets. Everyman stroked his chin. Ah, my mistake then. I guess it won't happen again. It's a shame, though, because I had been really looking forward to lending support to RBG as a contractor. But I guess if they've been disbanded, there's really no other way I would want to partner up with the Hero Corporation as a part-time hero. Part-time hero? What? Nation Man looked confused and glared angrily at the three members, who just shrugged. They were as surprised by this as he was. Listen, Everyman, that's what you call yourself, right? Nation Man asked before continuing. I like your style. I like what you did out there. But I'm the Hero Corporation president, the only S-tier hero at the corporation. I call the shots, not outsiders. Certainly, Everyman said. I wouldn't dare suggest otherwise. I am a package deal, though. If you want me, you want RBG as well. No hard feelings if that's a deal breaker. I will retire to my regular life and hang up the collared shirt. Nation Man shrugged. He started to walk out the door. The three heroes stood, a mix of sad and shocked at what had just happened. Right as he levitated into the air and prepared to fly off, he turned back. So be it, he said. RBG will remain a hero team under the guidance of Everyman, a part-time C-tier contractor at our organization. I trust the four of you won't make me regret this. He flew off. The three of them hugged together and celebrated. Everyman looked satisfied with what had happened. The RBG team turned to him. Thank you so much for doing that, Emerald said. Yeah, you're the man, Red scoffed. Listen, I appreciate you, but regardless of what Nation Man said, I'm still the lead for my guys here. I'd sooner retire than hand over what I built here, even to someone like you. Blue and Emerald both eyed him disapprovingly and nudged him to urge him to be polite. Everyman politely chuckled. Of course, Red Racer, I wouldn't dream of co-opting your team from you. I just want to help you be the best heroes you can be, because I believe that anyone can be a hero. Everyman stuck out his hand. Red Racer still looked skeptical, but after being nudged by both of his teammates, took it and shook it. Thus began the partnership between the three heroes and the man who could be anyone. Over in an F&F boardroom, a group of suited individuals stood huddled around a table, flanked by security guards. A helicopter started to land on top of the building. The businessmen all breathed a sigh of relief, but this was shortly broken when the window shattered. They all dropped to the ground. The security guards raised their weapons towards the outside, but quickly dropped them upon seeing who it was. Nation Man floated, seemingly motionless, but still drifted towards them with his power of flight. He glared angrily at the men who cowered before him. You neglected to mention that you were still developing that sample here, Nation Man said. I thought we had an agreement. One of the cowering businessmen stood up. Nation Man, it is for the imperative and safety of our society that we develop something like this. Nation Man grabbed the man by his throat. It was a swift motion that caused all those in the room to reel from the impact of his movement. Is that what your scientists said when you unleashed the contamination upon this world? The man gasped and struggled under his grip as he barely forced the words out. Nation Man, please! We're doing this at the direction of Nationland's president. He said that he would talk to you about it. Please go see him. Nation Man let the man go from his tight grip. Perhaps I will, he said, before flying off into the distance. Thank you so much for listening to this chapter of the heroic adventures of Everyman. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast, give it a like on YouTube, or share with someone else who you think might also enjoy. You can stay up to date with the heroic adventures of Everyman by following us on social media. That will be D-Squared Stories on just about any of the major platforms. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to have you listen again next week.